Okay.
You all ready? Hello everyone. Welcome to this session, which is the Marseille outcomes. It will be followed by drinks. Everyone who is here in person, you will notice that there is a fabulous looking table over there with a sheet of paper on it, and you need to sign in, otherwise the COVID inspector will be very cross with us. So we know that at the end of this Congress, the IUCN will be drafting a set of Marseille outcomes. And of course, business will be incredibly important in the delivery of that. So in reflection of that, we are joined by the partners of the Business and Nature Hub Pavilion here at the IUCN Conservation Congress. We've got Gerard from IUCN, we have Pippa Howard from FFI, we have Martin Locke from the Capitals Coalition and Jonny Hughes from UNEP-WCMC. And each in turn, they're going to be giving some brief reflections on what they've learnt, the sessions that we've had here at the Business and Nature Hub, and also across the entire Congress. And then we're going to have hopefully a dynamic conversation. We're going to give an opportunity for some of you to add your own reflections. And then following that, we're going to have a much needed drink, I think. So first of all, we're going to hear a few words from Gerard.
Great. Good afternoon, evening, and hi, all the people that are live streamed. So I'm very pleased to kick this off. It's a bit strange. My boss is right now, my big boss, that means Dr. Bruno Oberli, DG of IUCN, is right now giving his, wrap-up of the forum. And so I'm supposed to give the same messages to you, which is a bit difficult, but that's fine. I did have a peek on some of the elements and the messages that he's been given. But I will make it fairly specific also on this Business and Nature Hub, because it's really a lot of events that happen out here, a lot of richness that came just in this little corner here, but of course linking back also to some events that happened outside and in the forum, and I guess that some of my colleagues here will also say that. But I really want to start with just a huge thank you for you coming here, for being part of all this and making this live. It's really your input, your contact that you've provided to us over all these days that makes it so rich. So where are we going with the Marseille outcome? So some of the elements that will go into it is to really demonstrate that, and it's the introduction of the Marseille outcomes as it's being planned at the moment, is about the importance of agency and how IUCN can be really a key driver of the agency, and again stressing the importance of collaboration. I mean, that's clearly what we heard in so many different sessions, and it's just not collaboration among two individuals or within a sector. No, it's these radical collaborations across sector, actually having a type of alliance that you don't have normally, because first there's an urgency on solving the issues that we are facing, and secondly, we haven't been good at it at the last 10 years or at the last 30 years. We really need to do this much better, much faster, and for that there are some radical collaborations needed. The other element is also locally owned action, and that again is the power of the union. When you look at the combined IUCN Secretariat with all the members, the power that we have to drive action locally is extremely important, and that's why I'm so glad that our partners are talking after me, because you can talk then also very much about all these locally owned actions. And we heard so many great examples from each of the individual speakers, companies and organizations that were here on stage. The second element is we are, of course, at a specific crossroad where we have to counter the impacts of COVID-19 pandemic. But for me, there are two sides on this coin. The first is that we've learned that change can happen very quickly and that we can adapt to that change as well. And that we can rethink completely our business models when suddenly the rules of the game are being changed. And then let's make sure that the new rules of the game are then really including how we treat nature, how we interact with nature and the world in particular, because that's probably the best way or the best assurance policy that we'll have, so that we don't have a pandemic every year or a slightly different type of pandemic hurting the human population or even any other population, on this planet. clearly the need for being ambitious about the post-2020 global biodiversity framework. I mean, there was a whole pavilion only focused on that and having only sessions on that, and I know some of you have contributed to that. And we've got a wonderful agenda ahead of us. It has changed with the COP15, but there are some clear milestones there, and how we, from a conservation community standpoint, from a civil society standpoint, but also from a business standpoint, we can influence that. You know, think about October, when the Chinese will take over the helm of the negotiations. Think about January, when in Geneva there will be physical negotiations happening. That's probably the moment to mobilize a lot of business and the finance community, because then you can interact directly with negotiators. So let's think about it right now on what we can do about it. And then let's look also at March, April, when the real final outcomes of COP15 are unveiled. And then finally, the last point of the Marseille outcomes is about confronting the risk and impacts of the climate emergency. The next big event that's at our doorstep is COP26 in Glasgow. Let's make sure that nature is all over the place. We gladly had Nigel Topping here having a talk, and we talked about the Race to Zero dialogue. And it's clearly these two crises combined that will solve and provide the solutions that we need, and nature-based solutions, of course, being at the heart of that. But one thing I really wanted to thank all of you that have helped us is really making sure that business was in la place, as you say in French. You know, they were part of the game. They were part of the whole event. This was really noted by all the participants, and it was noted very positively. Of course, it started with the CEO Summit, you know, with more than 600 billion of turnover being there on stage. Of course, there were some concerns about which type of companies, which types of sectors out there, but it was diverse, and it was representing all the sectors that have an impact on the environment. And they all had something to say. Was it enough? Probably not. But then that's why we challenged them further. And then there was a lot of talks also with the finance community that really come on strongly, and really the need to rethink the economics and finance system. And that's where IUCN really wants to position itself on how can it actually change the system so that it integrates nature. So that's probably one of the key messages that's going to come out. I'm going to stop here because otherwise I'm not leaving anything else for my colleagues to say. And I'll come back at the very end, I think, just to close.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Gerard. Pippa, your thoughts?
Thanks very much, Gerard. It was hard to follow that act. You know, we've got a dance floor here ready for, you know, post drinks. But no, I'd like to just start by thanking everybody who's here tonight, but actually who's contributed and participated in the Business and Nature Hub, because it really is much bigger than before. I mean, ever before. The number of companies who've managed to get here is extraordinary. The level of effort that the companies and business have made to have their voices heard here too is fundamental. So not only from a sectoral perspective, but actually from those who've been here for, you know, this is probably the third or fourth Congress that some have been. So the stalwarts who are really, you know, flying the banner and actually helping to share their learnings with those who are really trying to find a pathway through some of the complexity, but these amazing commitments. So we've had really dynamic discussions around, you know, objectives-led frameworks, how we contribute to nature positive and net positive impact, how we do this at a landscape scale, how we take into consideration our impacts in a cumulative way with other actors in our landscape. So for me, that's a really huge step forward. But again, reflecting as an NGO, you know, an IUCN member and someone who's, you know, someone with an organization who's deeply involved in the delivery of conservation at a very grassroots level very often. These are the types of projects that need to come into the pipeline that help to deliver on the objectives that companies have to participate in and have promised to very often. So their goals are becoming our goals. So that kind of unification of objectives is really important. You know, there's been a lot of dialogue around, you know, bending the curve is kind of I think one of the main features is that we've got the best diagram for you know, ours is the most beautiful. So if anyone wants it, IP, trademarked, everything else, but you can have it, honestly, for free. But you can use it. It's just extraordinary. So the bending the curve thing around regeneration, moving from risk to actually restoration, worrying about ecosystem based approaches. These are things that are beyond the boundaries of our sites. So we're looking actually how we work in, not only to understand our own impacts, but through the supply chains beyond that into the broader ecosystem of business and the broader ecosystem of actually our demands. And it comes down very often to what we as individuals are committed to in our own consumer habits, our own behavioral habits, and how we shift our organizations and institutions to follow on that. So, business has made these commitments. As a conservation community, we sort of owe it to business to help them find the projects that can help to deliver that. And one of the things I heard actually in the post-2020 booth, I think we could call it, stadium, was really this idea that, big banks are wanting to fund nature positive outcomes. They're wanting to explore natural capital in a way they've not explored before. They want to put in conditionalities on their loans in a way that perhaps they hadn't understood before, because we now have a much more three-dimensional understanding of the impacts and dependencies that we have on nature. So I'm looking forward to the type of innovation and the mechanisms that will help to deliver that, not necessarily to the conservation community, but actually we do need a lot of funding for our projects if you want us to give you a pipeline of projects to deliver nature positive and NPI, but actually to those who are really implementing those, and that's to the communities in those landscapes who become, the individuals, the community-based organizations whose livelihoods depend on us actually recognizing the role that they play. So I think I'm going to stop at that, because we struggle with how to actually put in practice this stuff. We need to start from the bottom up and actually make these two worlds meet. So that's my Marseille outcome.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Pippa. Martin from Capitals Coalition.
Yes, thanks so much already for all those words. And I want to also thank the businesses that are here and all the organizations that worked with us to create this hub, but also IUCN, because you're providing the space for a meeting between business and the conservation community, and that is important, and it's increasingly getting more cozy. So I was in Hawaii, the discussions there were more tense. And I think that is important, because we talk a lot about mainstreaming biodiversity into economic sectors, but we shouldn't forget we also need to mainstream business into the conservation sectors, because they are there too. So having this space is great. I have 3 key takeaways from my discussions here, but also in some of the other rooms. And the first one is that we don't have to debate anymore whether we need measurement, valuation, capital, accounting, all these kind of things. Christine Lagarde made it quite clear already the first day, this is what we need. We have to understand our impacts and dependencies. So that goes beyond saying, although the business still struggle a little bit with how do you do that exactly. Can we make it a little bit more simple, not simplistic? It must be consistent, of course, but measurement is a key thing. That was clear, and we probably need to further work on that the next years. The other thing is, just measuring, you can measure yourself until you weigh an ounce, we would say in Dutch, but that doesn't mean anything if there's no direction. So the second thing, the need for an inspirational direction, a global target that really can support what we are all doing, and where business, finance, governments, community organizations all can rally behind and then help to solve the problems that we are in. That really is needed. You hear it a lot, and so I think this is what we need to get done. There is a huge coalition for a nature positive world, always nature positive, climate neutral and social equitable. They need to be together, but that is what we need. My third point, and this was a little bit of the amazement, is the call from business for strong policy. I mean, there's no discussion anymore whether there's a need for mandatory disclosure. So we can just take care of that the next month. But also the P word, pricing, was mentioned in several of the meetings. So start pricing resource use was another thing. So these were my top 3, and then of course the last one, I don't give it a number, is people. It's all about people. That was mentioned in so many discussions. We shouldn't forget it. We cannot save the planet if we do not save people first, and we need people to save the planet.
Excellent, thanks Martin, and thanks the 3 of you for pretty much saying all the things I was going to say. I knew that would happen. My team helped produce some excellent notes, which are now redundant because you've said everything. No, I think maybe I'll reinforce a couple of things. So one of the things I'd love to reinforce is we had the post-2020 biodiversity pavilion over there. I think businesses should engage not just with the development of the post-2020 framework, but well beyond that, and actually be part of its delivery. If businesses are not in the tent delivering alongside governments and all the other actors in this space, it will not be delivered. We will not get it delivered. Businesses are absolutely critical to the delivery of the post-2020 framework. So I think that's the first clear message. You might then say, how do we go about doing that? And I think Martin kind of covered this one in that, I don't know, two congresses ago we started to talk about tools and measures like natural capital approaches and metrics for business, and they were still in their infancy. I don't think there's an excuse now for businesses to say, oh, we're too confused, or these things are still in development and we're just kind of waiting for the perfect tool to come along before we really take the plunge and start to measure our impacts and dependencies. There's no longer really an excuse for that, because there's lots of wonderful tools out there, and I would start with the guidance that's already been produced by the Capitals Coalition and Science-Based Targets for Nature, and then come speak to us, come speak to our 4 organisations, go and speak to some of the consultancies that are in the room, and crack on with it. I said this earlier on today, the difference between motion and action. We've had way too much motion, way too much analysis, way too much planning, way too much prevarication and deliberation. The tools are there, then they might not be perfect. There might be a little bit of competition between them. We are getting towards standardization. I think standardization will be incredibly important, and I think the Task Force on Nature-Related Disclosures will help with that. But it's not an excuse for inaction. Don't wait for the Task Force on Nature-Related Disclosures to do its thing, possibly then create a legislative base for what you're doing. Crack on with it now. Get on with it now. And if you're concerned that you're going off in the wrong direction, come and speak to the many experts in our networks, which can help you do that. I think I'm probably going to stop there. Those are my 2 key points. I do, however, want to say a massive thank you to all the partners that have contributed to paying for this pavilion, which has been an absolutely fantastic hub over the week. And I actually love working with these three partners. I say partners, but I'm kind of involved in the Capitals Coalition, the IUCN, and UNEP-WCMC. I'm yet to join FAUNA and FLORA International, Pippa, but I think the four partners that have been running this hub this week have been it's been an exemplary example of collaborative working across organisations, and I think joined up messages as you're hearing now, which I think is very useful for this agenda, because we need more joined up messages as we're going forward. So I'd like to thank all the hub partners, as well as the businesses that have helped contribute to us being here tonight. And with that, I'd like to invite you to have a glass of something with us, sponsored by UNEP-WCMC, who said we were tight. And can I also say a huge thank you to all the technical staff that have run this, and particularly to Laura, who's been immense this week. Luis. Now the screens. Thanks so much. And with that, please grab a glass of something and enjoy yourselves. Oh,
Yeah.
Hannah's going to say something.
Well, no, I was just going to, I guess, quickly wrap up, because I think everyone is probably gasping, aren't they? I mean, it's been a bit of a busy 4 days, let's face it. But I think, I mean, Jonny, you mentioned the post-2020 global biodiversity framework, and clearly, you know, businesses have just a huge part to play in that. But very importantly, in the implementation afterwards. And what I've been hearing across the entire Congress all throughout is the importance of data, but crucially turning that into knowledge and then action after that. And I think that's a really clear message, and I think especially within the context of business, and we've been hearing it all throughout all of the sessions that have been hosted by the Business and Nature Hub throughout the last 4 days. And then actually finally, and I think this was reflected in what all of you said, but Gerard started it off, which was collaboration. You know, see, this hub is a collaboration, and I think it's been a huge success. Hopefully, absolutely everyone agrees, and maybe after a couple of glasses of wine, they'll agree even more. But I think also that, again, has been reflected in all of the sessions that have been delivered. All of them have been in partnership. All of them have been showcasing amazing initiatives that have also been delivered in collaboration. So I think that's really is, you know, one of the key messages that I've taken out. That's my effort at wrapping up. And I think we should all just have a drink now, shouldn't we? Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Oh, thanks.